Hello everyone. In 2013, President Xi Jinping announced the Belt and Road Initiative. At that time, the international community mocked it as fanciful thinking. However, the current situation is completely the opposite because China has gradually implemented parts of that initiative, which is building the maritime Silk Road. The plan began with the purchase of major seaports around the world. In Australia, China bought majority stakes in two key ports, Darwin and Newcastle, for nearly $1 billion. Notably, the Darwin port is very close to a U.S. military base. In Sri Lanka, they purchased a 70% stake in the Hambantota port for $1.1 billion. This partially fueled increased vigilance against their enemy. In Brazil, China also bought 90% of the Paranagua port for nearly $1 billion. In Greece, they acquired 70% of the Piraeus port and invested over $1 billion to upgrade it. They even purchased the Long Beach port in California for $1.8 billion. Previously, this port was invested in by a Hong Kong company, but in 2017, 75% of the shares were transferred to China. Soon after, the U.S. forced China to sell it back to an Australian company due to national security concerns. The examples above are just some of the prominent cases of China actively investing to acquire major foreign seaports. According to a recent statistic, they are currently investing in about 100 different ports in 63 countries worldwide. In Europe, they control about 10% of the most important ports. From 2016 to 2017, China spent $20 billion building and upgrading overseas ports and terminals. So what are their goals? Why do they want to own other countries' seaports? Firstly, there is the economic aspect. China is the world's largest exporter. In 2022, their exports reached $2.6 trillion. Therefore, the amount of goods they ship overseas is enormous. Operating their own maritime transport network allows them to efficiently deliver goods and avoid dependence on host countries. Comparatively, ports built and operated by China can process containers faster than most competitors. Additionally, the shipping industry also generates huge profits. Rather than letting others do it, they do it themselves to maximize revenue. According to President Xi Jinping, China wants to build friendlier relationships with countries they invest in. This may be true. However, some researchers call this a plan to dominate global trade networks. China's control of foreign seaports bears some resemblance to past empires like England and Portugal, which monopolized trade routes and dealings with local countries. Secondly, there is the political aspect. China not only invests in seaports but also in infrastructure development or lending money to host countries. This allows them to increase influence. For example, they invested $1 billion to acquire and upgrade Greece's Piraeus port. As a result, this country actively prevented condemnation from the EU regarding China's repression of Uyghurs and actions in the South China Sea. Thirdly, there is the military aspect. China was easily defeated by the British in the Opium Wars, leading to a period called the Century of Humiliation. One reason for this crushing defeat was their terribly weak navy. Afterwards, China set the goal of avenging this humiliation by striving to develop military strength, especially naval power. Today, they have become one of the world's strongest powers. According to a U.S. Department of Defense report in 2022, the Chinese Navy has around 360 battle force ships, the largest fleet numerically compared to other nations. Therefore, to enhance naval capabilities and demonstrate strength, it is beneficial for China to have seaports in foreign countries. These ports serve both commercial and potential military purposes. If the U.S. sends aircraft carriers to the South China Sea, China could also dispatch its warships from Greece or anywhere they have partnerships. This shows the world that their navy is also very powerful. Additionally, the global network of seaports could aid intelligence gathering. For example, Israel recently sold operating rights of the Haifa port for $1.7 billion to China. However, the U.S. Sixth Fleet docks there, so Washington worries this port will enable Chinese surveillance. Seaports are convenient locations to collect intelligence such as ship movements and communications. Currently, most Chinese investments in foreign ports are carried out by two state-owned enterprises, COSCO Shipping and China Merchants Port. Therefore, it is understandable that they could use these ports to gather intelligence or for military objectives. Through the information above, we can envision the vision of President Xi Jinping in China. It is not simple commercial business. I apologize for offending any patriotic Americans, but China may soon surpass the US as the #1 economy. In the past 5 years, America's average GDP growth was 1.77% while China's was 7.1%. Although many of us dislike this fact, it cannot be denied.